The goals people are setting are incorrect. And that's why people give up on their goals.
People that are mega achievers have such gigantic standards and outcomes for themselves that they're never quite meeting them. And I kind of like that.
What would be your best advice to people out there, whether they're entrepreneurs, whether they have a sales team, they're building an organization? What would you say is the best advice that you could give other people from what you learned about making their first $1 million? So say somebody's making 6 figures, scaling up, and that's
Just
the goal.
do the math. You know, what's first of all, do you want to make $1 million or do you want to keep $1 million? They're like 60% difference between those two questions.
Right. So specificity in the goal.
Do you want to make? Everybody watching is going to make $1 million. I mean, if you live 25 years, you're going to make $1 million. 25 times $40,000 bucks, bang, you made $1 million. If that's your goal. So this is what I talked about in the 10X rule. The goals people are setting are incorrect. And that's why people give up on their goals. Because I know so many guys that hit $1 million. Like I've had so many people come to me and say, I hit $1 million and I lost the juice.
Yeah, it got comfortable almost, yeah.
A lot of guys in network marketing tell me this. Like I was in network marketing, I became $1 million producer, just lost it because the goal was wrong. The goal was wrong. First of all, it wasn't your goal. Like, anybody that's got $1 million target, it's not your goal. You adopted this goal, this idea from somebody else. Because any number that ends in 0 is a lazy number. The chances of number ending in 0 is almost mathematically
What a great
impossible.
point. What a great point.
So it's a lazy concept. You just adopted somebody else's idea. I want to be a millionaire. Have you even done the math? Do the math on $1 million. It's no money. This is what people like. They God, I hate Grant because your target was $1 million. You're struggling making 200. You think $1 million's impossible. You don't want me to tell you the truth. And the truth is, it is no money. As soon as you get it, I read the book, The Millionaire Next Door. Almost everybody read that book back in the 90s. It was the best book for me because it taught me I don't want to be a millionaire. It lifted the lid. I'm like, I don't want to be the guy buying a Ford truck. I don't want a Ford truck, man. Right? I got to buy a Ford truck, a used Ford truck, F-150. So one day I could be a millionaire.
Yeah.
And I can't go get coffee. I need to bring a brown bag to my office every day, not drink coffee at the shop in order to be a millionaire. Well, the reason I knew that was not good for me was because my dad died at 52 with a little bit of money. And I'm like, I don't want to die with money when I'm old. I want to have enough money. And that undid everything for me. I want financial freedom. I don't want to hit a quota. You know, and I think everybody's struggling for the quota. They're struggling for the bills. They set their financial plan based on what their spending is or what their apartment costs or what the mortgage is, or what their kids need, rather than I want freedom. I don't want financial literacy. I want financial freedom. You know, so I hear people say, oh, we need to teach financial literacy. No, you need to teach financial freedom, the possibility of it. What would I need? How much? You know, this whole cash flow thing that I talk about all the time. Cash flow is the holy grail of finance. That's why his business works. That's why he's able to enjoy the lifestyle he has. He has financial freedom, not a money number.
So it's not income, it's more cash flow that's focused.
Well, it's income in the beginning.
Yeah.
Income
to set it up.
People need to work. First, I would tell people, look, you need to get some financial literacy. What does that even mean? 2, focus on income. I don't abandon income flows. I'm still doing what I was doing 30 years ago. Like nobody works harder for $15 than Grant Cardone. Okay. So, you know, I'll push for a $15 product because that's income and it's a score. It's a little tiny score.
And it's a habit. It's almost a muscle, right?
Oh, it's definitely a muscle for me because I respect money.
Right.
So it could be $1, it could be $1.99, it could be $3. My kid worked you for 100, you know, was struggling with you for 5. I said, hey, just up the ante, babe. You know? And so, you know, these are things that are a bit, they're like even you said, like, hey, Grant, you're known to talk about money a lot. You want to talk about money a lot. This Lee guy says to me, man, you like money more than relationships. I like relationships that help me produce freedom so I can take care of my charity and my church, and I can take care of mankind, and I can create a legacy, and I can have enough money that I'm not so worried about my 24 inches. Not his 24 inches, but my 24 inches, which covers my entire, like this proximity. You know, I remember when I couldn't even handle this.
Right.
The 24-inch neighborhood I had, my little Grant Cardone zip code. I couldn't even handle that. So I had to handle that first. And income takes care of that. And then it's like, but I need some bigger goals that allow me to, if I'm an introvert, extrovert enough to go get my freedom. So I can take care of my mom and I can take care, so my kids maybe don't have to have the same worries and concerns that I did. Like Scarlett said, did she have to go to college? I said, baby, you don't have to go to college. You need financial freedom is what you need.
Yeah.
So you can go anywhere you want.
Makes sense. How about you, Ed? Best advice to your first $1 million for people out there?
Well, I think he gave you great advice right there. I think that, listen, people do two things, I think, incorrectly. Number one is most people don't have any goals. They have goals. They don't have obsessions. Both of us, before we even met, both were constantly discussing about your obsessions become your possessions, right? Like most people don't ever get obsessed about anything other than their problems or their worries. Forget money just for a second. They're just not obsessed with something that would fulfill them, right? So that's number one. And then number two, they set them so small once they set them. They shortchange themselves, and that's linked to their identity. So your goals are always linked to your identity. If you see yourself at a certain level, you think you're only worth a certain amount, you set goals at $1 million. And even if your goals aren't money,
right?
Yeah.
Listen, there are people listening to this who are not wired. It's okay if you were watching this and say, my goals aren't financial. I'll accept that for a second. What I don't accept is when people tell me that, but it's not replaced with another obsession that would fulfill them. If it's, I want to have 1 million children get educated, or I want to feed 1 million people, or I want to start a charity that does XYZ for homeless women.
All those things will take money.
Those things do take money. Well, or the raising of money, right, from someone else. And so I find it that people either aren't clear on what their obsessions are, or when they get them, they're just some arbitrary thing they've set low that they think everybody else would think is a big deal. And so we were just off camera right before we went live, and we were both saying to each other, which is just, probably only say to each other, is we both really feel like we're behind. We really feel uncomfortable with where we are, because what we want to achieve, when I've done my show, the number one thing that surprised me, Omar, is in my podcast, in my show, is when I interview people, some say it on camera, but almost all of them say it off camera. And that is that, honestly, this is something people would be shocked by. The mega achievers that I have on my show struggle with what I would even call borderline depression. This is a secret that most people won't tell you, right?
I've seen it on my show as well, yeah.
And okay, so you understand
they're
this.
not fulfilled, they're not happy. They made the money, but they don't have a momentum.
I think there's an element of that.
Right.
And I think there's another element that people that are mega achievers have such gigantic standards and outcomes for themselves that they're never quite meeting them. And I kind of like that. I kind of think that having some discomfort with where you are, everyone thinks, I think everyone's fantasy is, I want to get somewhere where I don't want something anymore. Listen to me on this. I think a lot of people think, if I could just get somewhere where I no longer feel uncomfortable, where I no longer want something I don't have, where I'm no longer seeking something. What they're really saying is, I'd like to get somewhere where I no longer will grow again, right? I don't want that. I always want to be in a state of discomfort, a state of growth, a state of contribution. And so you better be careful that whatever you set, that as you're approximating it, as you're getting closer, that the next one's thrown out there, the next one's thrown out there. We spent the better part of the last 2 hours, both of us, we're playing cards. What do you want, man? What makes you happy?
He was beating me at cards.
I took literally all his money tonight, as a matter of fact, right? Well, all the money that was on the table. But the point I think I would make to you is that your obsessions are what you're going to get. So be very careful what you choose, make them big, and make sure that there's something that, at least at this stage of where you are in your current level of awareness, you believe truly would make you happy, truly would make you fulfilled. And be very careful when you set them. And so if that's $1 million, great. Like, we're both at a point now where, and we don't mean it in a condescending way whatsoever. I know that $1 million is not a lot of money in this world.
Right.
Maybe it was a lot of money in 1940, but it's not anymore. People that make six figures, and bless their heart, there are still people walking around that have deluded themselves into comfort and thinking, I'm successful because I make six figures. 6 figures was a lot of money in 1965, man.
Right.
This is 2018, 2019, when some people will watch this. That's not a lot of money now. And really, neither is 7 figures in income anymore, right? And so it's just a matter of you getting aware of what your capacity is. And the more you're aware of how spectacular you're wired, the less you'd shortchange yourself with really small goals.